Today, we're talking about another unpleasant topic, but one that's important: constipation. We all experience occasional trouble with bowel movements. However, for those suffering from chronic constipation, it can be painful, frustrating, and concerning. Constipation is the most common gastrointestinal complaint, resulting in 2.5 million doctor visits annually. We'll take a look at the causes, how to prevent it, and when you should see a doctor. We're also blowing up some common myths associated with constipation, and all of it is straight ahead on Prescription for Life. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Monica Robbins. You've probably experienced it. Constipation occurs when bowel movements become difficult or less frequent than normal. It's extremely common. As for chronic constipation, it's thought to affect about 16% of people in the United States, and usually it affects more women than men. But it can lead to other problems. A recent study found a connection between constipation and brain health. Alzheimer's researchers found that people who went 3 days or longer without relief had significantly worse cognition compared to those who had a bowel movement every day. The study shows how the gut and brain communicate and the importance of clearing toxins from our bodies. And that's not happening if you're constantly constipated. You don't have to live with this debilitating condition, and you shouldn't. For more about causes, how to prevent it, and the treatments available, we turn to our expert. Joining me now is Dr. Anthony Lembo, a gastroenterologist with Cleveland Clinic. Thank you so much for being here.
Monica, thank you for having me.
All right, we are talking about a subject a lot of people don't like talking about, but we're going to go there anyway. Constipation. How big of a problem can it actually be?
So constipation is extremely common. Evidence suggests worldwide about 12 to 14% of the population suffers from constipation. It progressively worsens as people get older. If we look at the elderly population, 65 and older, somewhere around 50% of people will be using some type of treatment for their constipation, whether it be fiber therapy or a laxative.
So what causes it? I mean, other than maybe not the proper diet, but is there anything other than diet that actually can cause it?
So yes, so many people will have abnormalities of their pelvic floor. So when you think about when you have a bowel movement, there's a whole process that you or I don't think about when we sit down and have a bowel movement, but it's actually a coordinated process that has to occur. And there are several key components that the people who have constipation would think about. One is you have to increase your intra-abdominal pressure. And you do that by contracting your abdominal wall. And what that does is it puts pressure inside your abdomen and your rectum, where presumably there's stool that's present, and that enables the stool to sort of move down and start to come out. But you actually have to be in the sitting position, ideally the squatting position. And that's the ideal way that humans typically have bowel movements. The modern day toilet is modern. It's not something that existed 500 years ago. It actually really just came into being in the 1800s, started in England, where they thought that was the proper way to do it. Some of us believe that the modern day toilet's too high. It's too elevated. And for many of our patients, we'll tell them they should be in more of the squatting position. So back to the other mechanism. So you have to be in that squatting or sitting position, and then you have to be able to relax your whole pelvic floor. And to do that, your pelvic floor actually has to descend a little bit. So you have to be able to relax and there's some key muscles that help relax it, your whole pelvic floor, but the puborectalis muscle. That puborectalis muscle, and I know this is great detail, but it's extremely important because it helps keep us continent. So it's extremely important so we don't have an accident, and you have to be able to relax that muscle in order to let stool pass. And for some people, they're just not able to coordinate that, or they've lost that coordination. That can occur from a variety of different reasons. So that occurs in about a third of people. And in others, the motility of the GI tract, or the colon specifically, is not functioning very well. So stool's not moving through the colon at sufficient rate.
So I'm hearing from you, if you're going to be squatted, those little step things that came out a few years ago are actually not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
Wow. Okay. Get your feet up if you have to. Yeah. All right. Who is most at risk for constipation? Is there a gender or racial aspect to it?
Right. So women by far. So the ratio is somewhere around 2 to 3 to 1 for women. It can even be higher among patients that come to seek care. So it is female predominant, very slow transit. The very severe cases, almost all women, typically occurring somewhere around starting around puberty. So suggesting that it may be a hormonally related, not necessarily hormone levels within the body, but the way the GI tract reacts to the hormones.
So what should people do? When do you know your constipation is something that you need to see a doctor about?
So if you have symptoms for more than 3 months, because we all experience occasional constipation is, present occurs in about 60 to 80% of people, particularly when you travel. For unclear reasons, probably the time change, dehydration, diet, etc. Lots of theories, we're not exactly sure about it, but we all experience some constipation. But if it's persistent and it occurs for more than 3 months, that's time to think about seeking care. Or if you have signs, what we call them alarm features, things that would make us a little worried. So if you have rectal bleeding, so blood in the stools. And one of the common misconceptions is that, it's just a little bit of blood after a bowel movement, it's my hemorrhoids. And we see patients all the time, it's my hemorrhoids, it's my hemorrhoids. And it's actually not your hemorrhoids, it's a cancer in the rectum. So it's really important, even if you think it's a hemorrhoid, if you're having regular bleeding, that you really should seek medical care. Weight loss, or you have a family history of colorectal cancer. Those are all reasons to seek care sooner. And again, if you're having chronic symptoms that are bothersome more than 3 months, then you should consider seeking care as well.
I'm going to take your point on weight loss and go a totally different direction. So many people are taking the new injectable diet drugs that have recently come out. And one of the aspects of that is that they move food through the system so slowly, it causes constipation. Is that dangerous?
We don't think so. So some of the myths associated with constipation is that it's associated with colon cancer. That has not been proven through the years. And you see these advertisements on TV that, all the waste and the toxins in your colon, you have to clean it out. That's actually not true. The lining of the GI tract is so efficient and has been developed over, the entire mankind to protect us. So there's a lot of crosstalk that occurs between bacteria and our GI tract, which is very healthy. And the lining of our GI tract requires the byproducts of bacteria to survive. So they're really essential. They work together. So it's not associated with colon cancer.
So what about for someone who is dealing with this? What's the treatment? I mean, first thought is laxatives, but should people go there first?
So in general, we suggest a fiber therapy as first, because for many people with mild constipation, fiber therapy may be appropriate. So we start with fiber. The key feature about fiber is getting enough of it. Okay, so in our population, the average amount of fiber intake is somewhere 12 to 15 grams, where the recommended, depending on your age and gender, is 25 to 35 grams of fiber. So in general, most people are not getting enough fiber. And I think most of us, myself included, overestimate how much fiber we're taking in. And really, when you actually measure it, it's probably inadequate given our diet. So if it seems to be inadequate, then we try to increase the amount of fiber. Getting enough of it is really the issue. So you really want to get up to 25 grams, which can be quite difficult for people. So we really suggest starting slowly. Again, we generally recommend dietary fiber. So eating fruits and vegetables are probably your best bet for people. If you can't do that, or it's difficult for you to do that, then you can add a commercially available fiber. And there, psyllium is probably the best of the products because it's a soluble fiber that's not fermented and forms a gel, so it helps to bulk up the stool for patients. And its requirement is that you take it with an adequate amount of water. or liquid. And that combination is very important to do together. You can't just take it with, they sell it in crackers, and you can't just eat a cracker. You have to drink the water and the liquids with it.
Wouldn't just drinking, the proper amounts of water that we all should be drinking anyway that we don't get, wouldn't that help with constipation?
So the evidence is not very strong for that, unless you're dehydrated. So we do see that in the summertime, where I indicated that people traveling, they may become dehydrated. Again, one of the major functions of the colon is to reabsorb water. Again, think about it as essential for mankind. The key features of the colon for mankind has been A, to reabsorb water when it was scarce, and 2, so you don't have to go to the bathroom constantly. You could actually function day to day and just have a bowel movement intermittently. So those are really the key features of it. So for most people, it probably it's not that important for water. Combination with fiber, as I indicated, is the key component of it.
When is it okay to take a laxative?
So after you've tried the fiber, and again, exercise is the other component of the lifestyle that's very important. Evidence suggests that the competitive athletes rarely have constipation. You look at marathon runners, constipation is very rare. Most of us are not marathon runners, but evidence suggests that if you do some moderate to rigorous exercise, that can actually improve bowel function. So we always suggest that as well. Stimulants can help. So a lot of people drink coffee. I mean, it was in the paper today about 60% of the population drank coffee in the last few days. So coffee is a stimulant that can actually improve bowel function. The timing of the bowel movement is so important as well. So for many people that already drink coffee, what we would suggest is that that they attempt to have a bowel movement in the morning. And so they have their coffee, eat a meal, and then when they feel their urge to go, then sit on the toilet. But usually tell them, don't just sit on the toilet trying to strain and push. Straining and pushing excessively, which a lot of people will do who have constipation, trying to relieve themselves, can actually induce a lot of problems, including hemorrhoids. It can affect the pelvic floor muscle, which we were discussing as well.
So what you're saying is you shouldn't be in the bathroom any more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I don't give a time limit, but that's a ballpark, yeah. So we talk about the positioning with the elevated of the feet, the timing in the morning. And for many people, it's inconvenient. We understand that people go to work early. It's not always doable, but we try to, we emphasize that would be the ideal time to do it. Then we would talk about a laxative. And there are several different types of over-the-counter laxatives, okay? And the most commonly used one, and the one that we generally recommend as first line, would be an osmotic laxative for several different reasons. Osmotics are generally well tolerated, and they can be titrated, so you can change the dose associated with them. Osmotic basically means that it's not well absorbed. So it brings water into the colon, and they can be, again, very well tolerated and very safe. The most commonly used ones are polyethylene glycol, or a magnesium type of product. Those are the two most commonly used products. We generally recommend a polyethylene glycol, although magnesium works well. But the magnesium, remember, some of it gets absorbed. So if you have renal insufficiency, your kidneys are not functioning, heart disease, it may not be the ideal product for you. The other set of products are stimulant laxatives. And there's a lot of misconceptions of stimulants. They had a bad name years ago when they were a stronger type of stimulant laxatives, some of which were unhealthy for us. And part of it has to do with the laxatives that were available years ago, that some of which caused some damage to the colon or could be abused by patients that were trying to lose weight. Currently, the ones that are on the market today have been available for many, many years. And really haven't been associated with any of those issues. So we don't see significant problems associated with laxatives. And what you'll see on the market, if you just go down to, to your local pharmacy, you'll see lots of different versions. And I encourage my patients just to look at the back of the box it's probably a Senna or a Bisacodyl product when it's when they're referring to a stimulant laxatives. Those are the two most common. Bisacodyl is a little bit more potent, so there we recommend that one to be used only on we call it rescue or just an intermittent basis. Really, if you're going to use it more regularly, a Senna would be generally better tolerated. And then there are other stimulant laxatives like Cascara, et cetera, but those are not typically used because they're much more potent, cause a lot of cramps, and tend to cause a lot of diarrhea. So I know it's a lot to think about, but really it's quite simple. Osmotic first. Sometimes adding a stimulant like a Senna to the osmotic is usually our first line go-to therapy.
When is it that you should see a doctor if you're dealing with constipation? How long should you wait, in other words?
So in general, if you're having symptoms if it's new onset, depending on your age, so if it's new onset over the age of 45, generally you want to see your physician about that because that's not very typical. As I did indicate, it does become more common as you get older, but again, it's probably best to get evaluated at that point. Or if you have those alarm features, or if symptoms are really severe, progressive, if they're getting worse, I think that's the time to do it. Or you can have any of those alarm features, particularly the rectal bleeding.
Are there other medications that you can take for constipation?
Yeah, so there are a number of different prescription medications that are available. And the general classes, we won't go into detail, but a number of them just increase the secretion within the liquid within the GI tract, can be very effective at improving bowel function. And there's also a medication that increases the contraction. We call a prokinetic drug that increases the movement of the GI tract. The other reason to see your clinician is that, as we indicated, sometimes people have issues with their pelvic floor, that there's discoordination of their pelvic floor. And there are tests that we can do to evaluate you further. And there's also treatment for that is not a medication. And it's actually biofeedback with a physical therapist. And many patients that have that problem, that undergo biofeedback, 4 to 6 sessions, they can have significant improvement in symptoms that really can be life-changing and not require medications. So we really try to emphasize that for people, and when appropriate, sending them for testing or sending them for physical therapy.
Oh, great insight. Dr. Limbo, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Monica.
People who struggle with constant constipation have a new option for some relief. The FDA recently cleared a drug-free capsule called Vibrant. The vibrating pill is meant to be taken daily, takes about 14 hours to start working. Once it reaches the large intestine, it stimulates nerve cells in the gut and triggers muscle contractions to help squeeze food through the gut. Right now, Vibrant costs more than other over-the-counter options at about $89 per month. The company says it is working to make it more affordable. The go-to options to make you go are fiber-rich foods. Here are 5 you want to eat for relief. Mangoes, which are full of fiber. Flax seeds are a good source of fiber and omega-3 fatty acids. Broccoli is a powerhouse of nutrients and fiber. Yogurt, full of probiotics to help get things moving. And pears, high in pectin, which is also a form of fiber. That'll do it for this week's Prescription for Life. We hope you found some relief with this episode, and we thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with another dose, and until then, I'm Monica Robbins, wishing you and yours good health.